Painting business is one of the easiest businesses to get into, even if you don't have experience. I've helped thousands of painting contractors grow their business. I've helped hundreds of people start a painting business and grow to millions of dollars a year. I also run my own portfolio of painting companies that does about $37 million a year, with two of our companies doing about $9 million a year. In this video, I'm gonna break down how to start in the painting business, even if you don't have experience. Let's dive in. This is how 18-year-old college kids ran a painting business. If they can do it, so can you. So when I was in college, I did a college internship with a company called CollegeWorks Painting, and there was a bunch of these companies around the country that did this. It was an internship where, as an intern, you would run a painting business the spring and summer. You would knock doors, sell jobs, hire painters, manage crews, and actually earn a profit on the work you produced. I did this when I was 18 years old. I ran a $60,000 painting branch and made a little bit of money. And then the next 5 years, I coached about 100 other college students as their mentor through the same experience and oversaw about $2.5 million in business while I was going to college full time. Every year, this company did about $25 million per year in business. And every year that $25 million was done by fresh interns who had never done this before. They had no background in business and no background in painting. So how did this happen? How did we do it? So I'll tell you the same thing I would always tell college students when I was recruiting people for the internship, which is, why do you run a painting business? College students don't think running a painting business is very cool. A lot of adults don't think running a painting business is very cool, right? It's like an unsexy business. And still to this day, when I tell people I run a painting business, they think I have a van and a ladder and a brush and I'm a painter. And I'm like, well, a little different than that. Like, I run a massive portfolio of painting companies and I'm like a business person, but people don't think painting's cool. And so we would always have to explain to college students why the painting business. And so this is why. First, it's a really simple business. Most people can paint a house themselves. If you just watch a few YouTube videos, like, you could paint a room yourself. A lot of people watching this video have painted themselves. So it's a relatively simple business compared to a lot of other businesses you could start, like software development or something in AI. Like, you need a lot more technical experience there. Painting is a pretty simple business, number one. So we don't need to learn much about the business itself, which allows us to focus on the mechanics of business, like marketing, sales, production, team building, and things like that. The second reason we get into the painting business is there's not a lot of risk. We're just painting houses. We're not doing hard surgery. There's not high stakes. The worst thing you do is you get paint on the wrong thing, or you got to repaint something. Like, it's not very high stakes. It's pretty low risk. The third reason we get into the painting business is because it's really low startup costs. You don't need much to start a painting business. In fact, you don't even need to buy equipment to start a painting business. I started my business with $200 and made $4K in profit in the first month. So low startup costs, simple business, low risk, and we can start it really simple. So one of the things we did with college students is we would only do exterior residential repaint projects on cookie cutter homes. We wouldn't do custom homes, we wouldn't do interior, we wouldn't do commercial, we wouldn't even do anything that was built more than 20 years ago. We would keep it so simple at the beginning, and that's how you can get into this business as a beginner with no experience, is you can keep it really simple, because the differentiating factor in this business is professionalism. And somehow this industry still lacks professionalism across the board. And so it's not hard to this day to come in and be more professional and bring better business principles than most of the people who are out there. And that's the differentiating factor. There's plenty of great painters out there that you can tap into. It's not about being a great painter, it's about being a great business person. And if I can teach college students how to do that, I can teach you how to do that. This is how you learn the trade if you're new to the painting business. Obviously, it's important that being in any business, you understand the trade, but there are plenty of things that you've gotten into in your life that you started not knowing anything, and now you know a lot about it. It could be some of your hobbies, it could be your current career path. Everybody starts at zero and then acquires knowledge, and this is gonna be no different. You still need to know the trade. You don't have to be the master craftsman. I am a horrible painter. Someone asked me the other day, hey Eric, what do you say when a customer wants you to paint the house? My answer was, you do not want me to paint your house. I'm a horrible painter. I get paint in the wrong places. I get paint on me. I take forever. Like, I'm a very bad painter. I have painted maybe 2 houses from start to finish in my 20+ year career in the painting industry. I haven't touched a brush since maybe 2011. So it's been a long time. You don't need to do any of the painting to run the painting business. And that's how most big businesses are. Like, the person who runs a $5 million company does not do the service at the, like, I don't like to say bottom level, but like at the front end, the front lines. They're not doing that because they can't, because they're running the business. And the people who do get stuck painting, actually, That's the first thing that you do. So if you're someone watching this business and you're painting, my advice to you is you have to stop painting so you can build a business. So your job is not to be an expert painter, but you need to have the knowledge of the craft itself. So let's talk about how you acquire the trade knowledge that you need. There's two things I'm going to show you. First is how you acquire knowledge over time. So at the very beginning, just like we did with college students, you're gonna start with low complexity. You're gonna start really simple at the beginning. And then over time, as you go through the business, you're gonna learn more and more and more into getting into things that are more complex. So even when I started my painting company, my first painting company, Foothills Painting in 2010, I had already been in the business for 6 years, so I knew stuff. But even then, it wasn't until year 3 where we actually started doing interior projects. We still just did exterior because the business is easier to scale when you keep it simple. So this is actually a win for you because you're gonna be nervous to do complex projects, so you're gonna say no. People with experience say yes to complex projects and they actually complicate the business, which makes it harder to scale. So over time, you can slowly make the business more and more complex, but at the beginning, you just keep it really, really simple in this little box down here, so there's not much to learn and you say no to everything else. And then over time, we're gonna learn more and more and become masters of the trade. But at the beginning, if this is all you're servicing, you just need to be a master of this so that you can serve clients in this box. And then over time, we can expand your service offerings as you learn more. So how do you learn? There's 5 main ways that you can learn the trade. The first way you can learn it is online. There's an abundance of resources online. You could go on there and just start Googling, right? There's YouTube videos, there's DIY videos, there's articles. You can use ChatGPT and say, hey, I wanna start a painting business. I wanna keep it simple. I'm gonna do residential repaints, make a curriculum for everything I need to know and link to resources. You can use all these resources online to build yourself a crash course and just go consume tons of content for the next 2 to 3 weeks and you will learn a lot. The next thing you can get involved in is groups. All right, so this is like the best groups to get involved in is painting contractor groups on Facebook. There's a bunch of these. In fact, there's a group on Facebook called Painting Contractors with 200 or 250,000 members. You could just like go start reading through the group, or you can just start posting questions in the group and you'll get tons of responses because there's a lot of people really passionate about painting in that group. That's an excellent resource ongoing. My head of all production still uses groups like that when he encounters things he's never seen before because that still happens in our business. The next really great resource you have is your vendors. So in most places, this is gonna be Sherwin-Williams, you know, your paint provider. It could also be Home Depot and Behr Paint. It could be Valspar, it could be Pittsburgh Paints, whatever. It could be Benjamin Moore. Whichever supplier you're using to get your paint, their job is to help you. And I can tell you that the reps at Sherwin-Williams need to open lots of accounts. One of the biggest parts of their whole job is actually helping startups. They have all the answers about product, application, services. They are incredibly, incredibly useful to you. Make a great relationship with your vendors and they can help you learn what you need to learn, including like just go do a crash course with them. Like that's literally their job that they get paid for, is to help you learn. Next up is gonna be your crews. So when you start the business, you're gonna start hiring experienced crews. I mean, almost everyone I hire to paint houses has more experience painting houses than I have. You're gonna hire crews, whether it's subcontractors or employees. I recommend subcontractors. A lot of these guys have been painting for 15 years, and when you come across something you haven't seen before, you just ask them, hey, can we paint this? Have you done it before? How much would I need to pay you for it? And that gives me an anchor point for what I need to charge. You're gonna learn a lot from your crews, and you're gonna start over here with stuff that's really simple, and then using these resources, you start to slowly expand out your knowledge base and learn. And then finally, through all of this is just through experience. So at the beginning, you're gonna do all this research with online and groups, and it's gonna get you good base knowledge. And then you're gonna start to encounter things that you don't know. And when you encounter things you don't know, that's experience. And then you're gonna use all these resources to get the knowledge that you need through experience. And that's how anybody becomes a master in anything, is through experience and learning. Again, we're not doing heart surgery here. We're not doing anything that's urgent here. Any question that ever comes up is not an emergency. So you actually can just say, I'm not sure, customer. Let me get back to you. I just wanna make sure I've got the right information. I wanna make sure I handle this the right way. Can I get back to you in a couple hours? And then you go post in there, you do a little online research, you hit up your crew, and you hit up your vendor. And in 2 hours, you just totally equip yourself with everything you need to learn about the trade. So this is how you learn the trade over time. At the beginning, keep it really simple and then slowly add, and that will actually benefit you in business, and there's no shortage of resources. This is how everybody learns, and you will very quickly be up to speed. This is how I sold my first 5 jobs with no reputation. When you start your painting business, you don't have a reputation. And so how are you gonna sell against the people who already exist? We have something going for us in the painting industry, which is there's a total lack of trust. The industry, really the whole home service and contracting industry, has a bad reputation. Just go ask people, did you ever have any work done in your house? How was your experience? And it's almost always bad. Like, we just have a bad reputation. So there's actually a little benefit to being new, is you're not from the industry they already don't trust. And so you're almost on the same page side by side with the customer talking about how bad the industry is, and you're not from it, therefore you can build trust on that. And that's what I leaned into. So when I was selling my very first jobs, I didn't have any before and after pictures. I didn't have any reviews, and customers like, how long you been in business? I'm like, you would actually be my first customer. And they would be nervous about that. And I would just say like, do you have any concerns about that or questions about that? And they'd ask whatever question or concern. And I'd say, look, I haven't done this before, and I know you'd be taking a chance on me. And so let me tell you why you can take a chance on me. I think that painting a house is really about 2 things. We gotta make sure we're using good products, and then we gotta make sure we do the job right. But painting a house is actually pretty simple. Like, you can just look at YouTube videos on how to paint the house. That's not the problem with the industry. The problem is that people don't do what they say. They don't show up on time. They leave messes. They're difficult. They're hard to work with. It's all the horror stories you've heard. What I can promise you is I'm not gonna do any of that. Here's my track record. Here's my character. Here's what I believe. And I will personally be here every single day. So I can make my own personal promises to a customer that the big companies can't, because you're interacting with a salesperson. So you don't need to win every job. You just need to win one job. And once you win one job, you get before and after pictures, you get a review, you get a reference, and someone you can call because you're gonna knock it out of the park. The next job will be easier, the next job will be easier. So the hardest job to win is the first one. So you're gonna sell on character. But there's 3 things that we need to really focus on to start getting clients. We need to focus on marketing, we need to focus on sales, and we need to focus on pricing. Later, we'll get to how do we actually get the houses painted. So for marketing, there's a couple key principles. The first thing is, at the beginning, you wanna do things that bring in money fast. Here's some examples of things that don't bring in money fast. Websites. Don't spend a bunch of money on a website. Build a free one. Your website doesn't matter if nobody goes to it, and no one's going to it because nobody knows you, because you're brand new and you're not spending any money to get people to it. Wrapping vehicles. Not a bad idea, but if you go spend $2,500 wrapping a vehicle, you might not get a call for a month, and it's gonna take like a few jobs to make that worth it. It might take 3 or 4 months to get your money back. We want things that we can put money out and get that money back quick. Another example would be investing in SEO. Really good thing to do, don't do it at the beginning. What we want is things that return money now. The second thing to understand is the beginning is about hustle. You just have to make it happen. The people who succeed at starting their business and the people who fail, the difference is grit and will and willingness to do what's necessary. Like, you just have to go put in the work at the beginning because nobody knows you, and you just have to go like get through that first early stage, get that first job, and then get a second, and then a third, and then start getting 1 a week. The third thing we wanna look at is your 5 options for marketing. 1 is you can do door-to-door marketing. That's what I did. I think it's the absolute best thing that you can do at the beginning. You don't have to do it forever. You just have to do it at first, just to get the ball rolling and create cash flow, and then you can start using money instead of time. 2 is lawn signs. It's super basic, but it works. Just drive around town, start paying attention. How many lawn signs do you see? I can tell you, driving around my town, I look at this, I don't see hardly any lawn signs for painting contractors. If you just start putting up a lot of lawn signs, like, people will see you and they'll call you when they need painting. I'll tell you a really quick story about this. One of my project managers, he lives on a farm and he has a barn, and somehow like a car crashed through his barn and he had to replace his barn. And I talked to Ray that morning and found out he needs a new barn. I was driving home from taking my daughter to school, and I saw a sign at a stoplight and it said, "We build barns." I took a picture of it, texted it to Ray. Ray called him, and they rebuilt Ray's barn for a lot of money. Lesson there is, like, if you're just visible when a customer needs you, you get the business. There is no brand in painting. It's literally like a convenience thing. Be there when they need you. 3 is flyers. If you want, you can just drop flyers. You'll drop like 1,000 flyers, get 2 or 3 phone calls. It works. But what's better is to actually knock on the doors too. 4 is lead services. Lead services like Angie, Networks, Thumbtack. These are not all great. Sometimes they're really expensive, but at the beginning you don't have any other costs, and so you can afford them, and you pay them for a lead. So it's a really quick transaction. And then 5 is gonna be Facebook ads. If you have some experience in this, you can run them. If you don't have experience, it's hit or miss. If you work with me in my coaching program, we have webinars where we teach you how to run your Facebook ads productively, and it's highly effective. Now, I want you to understand the cash flow here. So the way that the cash flow in the business works is there's two parts of the business. First, we collect 25% when we sell the job. And the only expense we have is our marketing expense, which is usually 10 to 15%, which means when you sell a job, you're actually making 10 to 15% positive cash flow. And then we have the other 75% of the project when we actually paint the house. This is the production. Our cost is our subcontractor for 50%. And so we make another 25% cash flow when you produce the house. And so we make money when we sell and pay back our marketing costs. We make money when we produce and put that in our pocket. And what's nice is when you use these options, you get a lead this week, you do the estimate within 7 days, and you close it within 3. So we turn over our cash and pay back our marketing expenses within like 10 days. So once you hustle all these things in the very beginning, and you start doing a couple jobs a week, now you're actually making enough cash flow over here and here that you don't need to do all this stuff anymore. You can hire people to do this, and you can double down on this. All right, sales, I'm gonna walk you through a really basic framework. I have a much more detailed video on this that you can check out where I go into 30 minutes of detail on our sales process. I'm gonna give you the 3-minute version right now. There's 5 main steps in the sales process that we wanna master. If you get these 5 things down, these 5 playbooks we use to sell 50% of our bids. And then there's a lot more in depth we can get into, but this is the fundamentals that makes people really great at sales. The first thing is the initial call. This is when we set up the estimate, we set expectations for the estimate, we build a little rapport on the phone, we find out what they need and want, we build out with the customer, this is what the estimate process will look like, we make sure they're available for the time, things like that. Set yourself up for an opportunity to actually win the job. At the house, we take a little bit of time to do a Q&A. We really listen and we ask questions and we find out what's important to them. You got to understand what's important to your customers so you know how to tailor everything else you're going to talk about to them so it's a custom experience. The next thing we do is a walk around. That's when we actually walk the project. We identify different problem areas, we make recommendations, we customize the bid, we ask them what they want done. This is where you build a custom estimate for your customers so you get them exactly what they need and want. Then the next thing we have in here is what we call pre-closes. This is basically 2 things that we do to give customers a reason to buy. You got to realize that most customers, if you don't give them a reason to buy, then they're just getting an estimate. And so you get out to the thing, to their house, and you walk through the estimate process and they don't take it very seriously. And you ask questions like, hey, do you want this or that? And they're like, I don't know, just quote both. And then you get to the end and they're like, cool, thanks for this. And you're like, yeah, do you want to do it? And they're like, oh, I don't know, we're not ready to decide yet. Like they didn't even take it seriously. And it's super frustrating. And so we need to give them a reason to take it seriously and a reason to make buying decisions. And the best way to do that is with money. And it doesn't take much to give someone an incentive. So there's 2 ways that we save people money. One is scheduling. So there's a scheduling discount where we say, hey, if you can be flexible around our schedule, we'll save you some money. When do you want to paint? 6 weeks to 8 weeks, cool. I've got a couple spots here. Would that work for you? Cool, I'll knock a couple $100 off. And then we also let them know, hey, if everything looks good today, you like me, you like the price, you want to work with me, saves me time if you just let me know that today. So if you guys say today, Eric, let's just do it, that helps me out, I'll save you a couple $100. It's very casual. It's literally an I scratch your back if you scratch mine, but that's all it really takes to take someone from a window shopper to a buyer. And then the last thing we have is the close. This is where we actually present the estimate and give them the prices and then stop talking and let them actually make a decision. Throughout this whole process, we're going to build rapport and build a relationship because people buy from people they like, people trust people they like, people buy based on trust, and this is fundamentally our sales process. I've got a much more detailed video you can go check out there. And then finally, we get to pricing. There's only 2 things that I want to tell you about pricing. The first is don't worry about it. A lot of people get really panicked and really worried about pricing because you're worried about pricing a job wrong. But if you're building the business the right way, we should charge $5,000 for a project that's going to cost $2,500 to do. So you would have to bid this project for instead of at $5,000, you'd have to bid it at like $2,300 to really screw up, and you would only lose $200 on that project. So there's not really anything to be too worried about because if you made a mistake like that, you will never make that mistake again. It's $200 to fix that forever. So we just got to be like in the ballpark of 5,000, 5,300, 4,700, whatever. We've got enough spread at the beginning that you can make good money on any job, even if you're off a little bit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I have some estimating guides. link below this video. You can go check out my estimating videos. We've got some basic estimating videos. I've got some free estimating guides. And then if you say, hey, I actually want to work with you and like help me implement all this, we go into a ton of detail and like give all this to you in our coaching program. But you've got some free resources you can access for pricing. So this is how we're going to get our first job. We're going to do marketing to get potential clients. We're going to follow a basic sales process. This alone will massively separate you from the competition because most contractors aren't even doing the basics here. And then pricing, we're going to do our best. You can use free guides to start, and then you're going to adjust over time. New painting companies should never hire employee crews. One of the biggest mistakes that people make and misconceptions they have is they think if I start a painting business, I'm going to need to hire some painters. And I was talking to someone just the other day and he's like, yeah, I'm so excited. I just started my business. I just sold the job. Like now I just got to go and buy all my equipment. And I texted him, I said, no. Don't do that. Do not buy equipment. The only reason you need to buy equipment is if you're building employee crews, and building employee crews is a mistake for a new business. So let me explain to you why. First, employee crews are difficult. It's a lot more work. Just in the grand scheme, we basically have two options. We can use employees or we can use subcontractors. If we use employees, there are some downsides. One is hiring. Hiring employee painters means you need to hire one at a time. It's one by one. But when you hire subs, you can hire one to many. You can hire one subcontractor who already has 5 guys. So hiring is way more efficient on the subcontractor side. Next is training. You've got to train them one by one because every painter you bring on, you need to train them to make sure they're good. And a lot of times when you're hiring painters, they don't have that much experience. There's someone from another industry. It's a lot more time. When you're recruiting subcontractors, there's no training. The reason there's no training is because you're hiring someone who already owns a business and already has their own painters and already has their own equipment and has already trained their own guys. You don't need to train them because the agreement with the subcontractor is, hey, I have this client, it's Mr. Jones, we're painting his house, here's the prep work, here's the materials, here's what needs to be done. It's a $6,000 job. I'm gonna pay you $3,000 when it's done and he's happy. They have to do it well and have to make him happy to get paid, which basically means like their guys better be trained because if they're not trained, they're not going to do a good job. If they're slow, it doesn't matter because you agreed on a set price. So it really takes training out of the mix. All right, next is equipment. You've got to supply all the equipment for your employees, which means about $1,000 to $1,500 per person that you go to invest in equipment. But then you also have to maintain all of the equipment. All of these things take more time. With subs, there's no equipment, because they come with their own equipment. All right, the next up is it's more complex with payroll. There's just more laws and rules and regulations and things you got to deal with payroll, with employees, with timesheets, with driving, with vehicles, with insurance, with workers' comp, with burden. It's just a little more complicated. With a subcontractor, you just write them a check. At the end of the project, I just write the guy a check, $3,000, here you go, done. At the end of the year, we process their 1099. And then finally, we can look at seasonality. So we'll just put this across, but this is better with subcontractors. So let me explain what I mean by seasonality. At Foothills Painting, we've got like our whole 12 months of the year, right? And there's January, and then there's December. There's times in the middle of the summer when we have 150 painters working on houses, but then there's times in January when we have 15 painters working on houses. So there's this really nice drawing I just did here, where you've got like low demand and like it's a seasonal business and then it ramps up and then it slows back down. So if we use employee crews, what we would have to do is staff this up in the spring and then lay people off in the winter. Or we would have to flatline this and say no to all this work and leave a bunch of money on the table. So what subcontractors allow you to do is bring on more subs when you've got more work and then lay out subs off when you have less work without all the issues where I don't have to hire, train, equip, and then fire, and then do it again every single year. We can just have subs, and subs run their business. Subs know it's seasonal. They've already got plans for that. So this is the model that we want to use when building the business. As a new business, your sales is not going to look like this. This is not going to be your sales as a new business. It's going to look like this. You're going to get 10K in work, or it's probably going to look different than that, but you're going to get like 10 grand and then 0, and then 15K and then 0. And then maybe 5K and then 0. But when you have employee crews, you need to keep them busy every week. 5K, 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 5K. And this puts a lot of pressure on the business owner because once you hire employees and you equip them and you hire them, you have to keep them busy. And if you have a down week, then you start stressing, and sometimes people start lowering their prices to keep their guys busy, or they start getting desperate in the sales process, which undermines their sales. You don't need to worry about this with subcontractors. You could have 0, 0, 0, 10K, 0, 0, 0, and it's no problem at all because that's the nature of subcontracting. So it takes a ton of pressure off you, makes the business a lot easier. You can hire 3 guys with 1 hire, no training needed, no equipment needed, write the check, don't worry about seasonality, don't need to worry about the schedule. This is how you produce jobs. All right, so now we want to talk about 2 things. 1, how do we hire subcontractors? And then 2, how do we do your first jobs? All right, so hiring is really simple. We basically want to get a lot of leads, and then we screen them through email, and then we screen them through a phone call, and then we screen them through an in-person interview, and then we check out their work, and then we make them a job offer. We want to cast a big wide net here and then be super selective so we only find the top 1% of people over here. So the question is, how do we get a lot of people up here? Well, there's basically 3 ways that we can find subcontractors. The first is ads. Typically we do this on Craigslist. We post in the general labor section and the skilled trade section, and we post like an ad every single day or 2 ads a day to get lots and lots of candidates. Yes, we spend money doing it. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's worth it because this is the people who are gonna paint your houses and make you money. The second thing we can do is network at the store. All right, so you can literally go to the paint store and look for unmarked white vans and just say, hey, excuse me, man, are you a subcontractor? Are you ever looking for anyone else to work with? Let's exchange numbers. I've got a couple projects coming up. I'm looking for somebody. Super simple. This is what they do. Unmarked white vans. You can just talk to people. I found some of my best subs that way. The third thing you can do is on Facebook. So you can do Facebook Marketplace, or you can literally run Facebook ads. This one, by the way, includes if you see someone painting a house and it's an unmarked white van painting a house, go talk to the people. That's where I found one of my very best crews that came with 10 guys. He painted a $700,000 job for us in 8 weeks where we made a ton of money. So they're out there. We just need to cast a wide net, invest money in here, invest money here, and start doing this because all you really need is 1 to 2 subs to do a lot of revenue. For perspective, you basically need 2 people is $5,000 per week. So if you want to do $20,000 a week in $1 million business, you need 8 people to do $20K per week equals $1 million per year. So that's what we're looking for. We don't need a lot of these. We need a lot of these to get just 1 or 2 really good ones here. All right, so let's talk about how we do our first job. So once you are super selective, so you're likely gonna succeed with this person, likely they're gonna do a good job because you were thorough over here, now we need to make sure the first jobs go well. So the very first job, let's just assume we've got a 3-day project. All right, let's just pretend every one of our projects is a 3-day project. This is what our schedule is going to look like. On the first job, you're going to show up in the morning and you're going to show up at the end of the day, and then morning, end of day, morning, end of day. So this is the pre-job walk, and then this is the final walkthrough to collect payment. The next job, you're probably going to do the same thing. And then the next job, you might just show up here and here and here in the final walk. And if everything keeps going well, then you're just like here, here, and here. All right, and then we're just gonna do the first and the last, and then, you know, you get to like, hey, they're gonna do the pre-job, I'm just gonna do the last one, and eventually, with a good crew, you can get to the promised land, which is you don't show up at all, and they do the entire project, and you manage everything from the phone. This, you need top 1% subcontractors to do that. We call them tier 1 subcontractors out there who just are phenomenal, who do amazing work, can communicate with clients, can collect final payments and all that. But this is how we're gonna tee this up to make sure that you can do the project really well. And if you meet someone in the morning and they can't work competently for 8 hours until the end of the day, you hired the wrong person, which goes back to, hey, I just didn't do a good enough job in the hiring process. So now I want to walk you through how you're going to grow the whole business. So there's phase 0. This is about stability. We just need to get to financial stability. What we're aiming for here is $10,000 per week in revenue, $3K per week in profit. And how we get there is with hustle. That's it. This is the hustle phase. All right. There's only 4 things we're working on. 1, marketing. 2, sales. 3, pricing. And 4, project management. That's it. Phase 1 is the foundation. The goal of phase 1 is to take this 10K a week and turn it into 20K per week with 6K to 7K per week in profit. And this is all 40 hours, by the way, because you start a business to create freedom. You don't start a business to work a ton of, and so we don't need to. So 40 hours. How we get there is through mastery. We get better and better and better at things. What are we mastering? 5 things. 1, marketing. 2, sales. 3, pricing. 4, project management. 5, you're building a CRM, financials, and admin. In this phase, how do we go from 10K a week to 20K a week? Well, you get better at everything. You get better at marketing, so you can get more qualified leads in the front door. You get better at sales, so you turn more of your possible estimates and customers into paying customers. You get better with your pricing to make sure you're nice and consistent, accurate, profitable, makes everything smoother. You get better at project management, so you find more good subs and you get your process dialed in so that you can produce those jobs without babysitting. And then we need to set up the CRM, financials, and admin so you're able to scale. Then we get to phase 2. This is team. At some point, you can't do it all. The goal of team is to get to $60,000 a week in revenue and 12K per week in profit. How do we do that? Ultimately, and again, this is where we're actually working like 15 to 20 hours per week, because this is where real freedom happens. This is where you make $500,000 a year working part-time. You're not in the day-to-day. You can leave for 2 weeks at a time. Your team runs the show. We need to do 3 things. We need to recruit, train, and develop 3 roles. You need 2 project managers, 2 sales reps, and 1 office manager. And this is your team of 5 that can generate $60,000 a week. Your 2 sales reps sell 30K a week each. PM does 30K a week each. And your office manager holds it down with phone calls, admin, communication, things like that. So these are the 3 phases to building a business. This stage here, what we help people do is we have a coaching program where we help you go from 0 to 10K a week in 90 to 120 days. So we can get you to this number in 90 to 120 days. Then we have another coaching program where we help you execute phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, people who really follow the coaching and do everything, this phase can get done in 6 to 12 months. That's if we give you all the playbooks, all the training, all the coaching, weekly webinars, events, like we unload everything we've got to help you do that. It's 6 to 12 months. It's gonna take you a lot longer if you're trying to do this on your own. Phase 2, this is gonna take people about 2 to 3 years. So this whole process to go from 0 to $3 million a year is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. If you don't have to build all the systems, build all the playbooks, and figure this all out yourself. This is how quick people can do it. This is how quick we've had people do it. This is what we do at Painting Business Pro in our coaching programs, is we help people scale from 0 to $3 million a year and create freedom in their life. And the way we do it is we already run a $37 million company. We already have $9 million companies. We have every one of these playbooks, every one of these trainings fine-tuned over the last 15 years, and we plug you into them. And then we also have coaching, and we've got accountability, and we have events to help you master this, because you still have to develop the skills, and that's what we help you do. We just take all the figuring out of it. So I'm gonna drop a bunch of resources in the description below. A lot of stuff I've mentioned in the video is gonna be linked below, as well as links to come and apply to learn about our coaching program and how we can help you actually execute all of this in your business. Hope you got a lot out of the video, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.